Learn more, call Quicken Loans today at 800-QUICKEN or go to QuickenLoans.com. That number again is 800-QUICKEN.
Important terms and conditions apply. Call us for cost information. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 25 minutes before 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. We are, if there's a hierarchy in celebrity, Robin, and I really use the word reluctantly, but I'm trying to make a point here, then we are at the very, very bottom. And the reason I'm even bringing that up regarding us is because when our children were little, you and I never mentioned their name on the air. We hardly even mentioned the fact that we had children. And the reason we did that, we're tiny little station in a tiny little town, but still, there was still enough of a concern on our part that we made a conscious decision to never mention the names of our children when they were younger. Now they're adults, and we do mention their names now, but when they were children, we really didn't. And because the biggest fear of all is that you've got a little bit of notoriety. In our case, it's just in this little dot on the map. But what if you were like Letterman? Letterman was expressing this in an interview once. He's got a young son.
Yes, I think he's 10 now.
And I'm guessing this happens regardless of how famous or wealthy or anything you are. If you've got a child, be aware that there's somebody out there who might want to take your child. And so that's what we want to talk about a little bit. And we want to speak to a man who helps recover those children, and that's the good news. This guy is so successful at what he does that there's a TV production in the works. Sony Pictures Television has recently re-optioned a TV series script based on our guest's life. He is Logan Clarke. He is a child abduction expert and a private investigator, and we're going to speak about child abduction, the recovery of abducted children, reuniting them with the people they should be reunited with. And it's just a fascinating story. I'm sure lots of sad endings, and I'm sure lots of happy endings. Yeah. And by the way, for those who like to name drop, Pierce Brosnan, the guy who played James Bond, executive producer of the TV show, as well as appearing in the show, right?
Yep.
Logan Clarke. Good morning, Logan.
Good morning. How you doing, Larry?
Pretty good. Thank you for agreeing to be on our show. Where are you?
I'm in California.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you for getting up early to be with us. Where did this start for you? How long ago did you start looking for abducted children and perhaps reuniting them with their families?
Well, it started back in the 70s, mid-70s, when there were I was doing both. I was doing parental kidnappings, where one parent would steal from the other parent, and take the child to another state or take it to another country. And we would go and literally, we started in the United States doing it in the 70s. There were no laws whatsoever. And we would have to go and literally re-kidnap the child and rescue the child.
Wow.
It was a no man's land. It was hairy. We would plan them like bank robberies. And on the parental ones, the people have a strange feeling. They think that it's okay while they're, the child's with one of the parents, so they're not in danger, and nothing could be further from the truth. But the Department of Justice considers it extreme child abuse.
Oh, really?
They change the color of their hair. They change their names. They have them start lying. They poison them against the other parent. It's terrible. It's not unlike stranger abductions, especially but depending on the age of the child. When they do it when they're 4 and 5 years old, 6 years old, which is the majority of the ones when they do it, it's to the child, it's like a stranger abduction. They don't understand anything.
Wow.
And stranger abductions obviously are horrible. They're the worst. So you got to worry about both of them. I mean, when you have to worry about a stranger kidnapping your kid, or whether it's your husband or wife that's going to steal the kid, it's not pretty.
Is it always clear if it's a stranger or another family member?
It's not always clear, but it becomes clear very quickly, especially to a professional. The problem is the authorities just don't get involved. They do when the news gets involved. It forces them to get involved. but the police should treat it like, selective prosecution. They choose. Well, they sit there and they say, "Oh, well, the child's with the dad or the child's with the mom," so it's a civil matter.
When you get together with your family at Thanksgiving or whatever, nobody else must speak. I mean, you must have the most interesting stories to talk about. Everybody said, "What?" So what'd you do? What'd you do this year? I haven't seen you in a whole year. Oh man! I mean, what am I going to say? Oh, I spoke to some people on the radio. I mean, my goodness, you saved some children. Yeah.
I get invited to parties. Honest to God, I get invited to parties to tell stories. I used to work in the Middle East a lot, and I still do. And there was some guys over there with the royal family that had a great big yacht, huge, like a city. And I would get there, and the first thing they would say is, Logan, come and tell us stories.
which is why Sony wants to do a TV. Is the TV show? Oh yeah. Is it already in the works? Yeah,
it's in full development. It's just that they've had trouble with the script. They brought 2 or 3 major writers on the show, and done scripts, and we've flown Pierre Morel all the way in from France. Pierre Morel directed the movie Taken with Liam Neeson.
Oh, that was a good one.
Awesome. Yeah, awesome. And he'd never directed television before, so he's going to direct the pilot. But it's just gone through most television shows, unbeknownst to the public, take about 5 years before you see it on the air. The development, bringing everybody in, getting the stars committed to it, getting the script correctly, it's quite a process. But we got Sean Ryan, who created the Unit and the Shield and a bunch of stuff. So, wow. And we got a wide berth because I do this all over. I rescued kids in Sudan, in the Sudan desert from villagers. Wow. Guys on camels that carry swords and chase us. We escaped up the Nile River. For real.
Wow. So when you are looking for an abducted child, I'm curious about technology. If it's a teenager or a preteen who's old enough to use like texting and Twitter and things like that,
right.
Do they sometimes give hints themselves? Do the children sometimes give hints as to where they are?
Yeah, if they can get anywhere near a telephone. And some of the parents instruct them correctly. There's some pretty small phones these days that kids, if they're sharp, they can keep on them. You can have a GPS on your child. Kids are pretty proactive. That's why we tell parents, even though no matter how small your child is, at the age of 4 or 5, 3, 4, 5 years old, your child should know your phone number, your address, your family name. You really need to train them so that they know things. And it's not a paranoia thing. It's just safety.
Right. I'm almost reluctant to ask you this question because I don't want to tell the bad guys anything, but here it is. What mistakes does a kidnapper make that gets him or her eventually caught?
Yeah, I got to be careful in answering that.
Okay, so then don't answer. If you think it's going to be, I mean, I guess we don't need to go there.
I can tell you that there's good news and bad news of technology. Is that some parts of technology have made it easier for, when I was doing this in the 70s and 80s, and even the 90s, there were no cell phones and there were no GPS machines and tracking the way that it is now. But It's also, there were no burn phones. There were no throwaway phones. People know how to cover their tracks with all the CSI shows and all the different shows and all the different spy shops that are all over the place. They learn to cover their tracks a lot more. So it still gets down to getting dirty, getting in the street, and finding these people.
Do you work by yourself, or do you have people that physically go with you to these places?
Oh, we have a team. Yeah, we have a team. There's 27 people on our team. We speak 17 different languages.
Wow.
We can go anywhere in the world. I can pick the phone up. For an example, if your child was taken, and for some reason, if it had to do with human trafficking, and we believe that your child was in a foreign country already, and it happens really fast. Within 48 hours, your child's out of the country, gone.
Oh.
And I mean, it's so fast. They'll have the child across 2 states, boom, bam, across the borders into Mexico, and then from there it's no man's land. I can pick the phone up, and any city in the world, I would say 98% of the cities, towns, provinces in the world, I can have a human body at an address within a couple of hours. I can literally just we have that many contacts. If it was some small village in northern Philippines or southern Philippines, I could pick the phone up and say, I want somebody there with a camera, and I can get them there within a few hours.
Oh, wow. Now, how about how about the domestic cases? Because sometimes in divorce cases where there's custody involved, the judge will side with the mother. And then all of a sudden she gets all these rights. The dad is, dissed and everything, even though he's the good guy in the case. And then the dad will come up and say, okay, you've got to be with me. And then takes the child, hoping that he's going to be able to overturn the judge's decision. How do you know which cases are really legitimate or not?
Well, the first thing I do when I get first of all, in parental abductions, parental kidnappings, it's a federal law. Most states, it's a state law. It's a huge crime. But the police don't treat it that way. There are over 200,000 parental kidnappings every year in the United States. That is the reported number. Now, the unreported number pushes that up to 400,000.
Wow.
Parental abduction. This is mom and dad stealing the kids from the other parent. A lot of times they're psychos. They got out of mental wards. They've lost custody. They have only supervised visitation. They have gotten away from supervised visitation. It's insane what goes on. And they do it around the holidays, right around now. I have cases all over the world. In different countries because they want to take them home for the Christmas holidays. And there's signs. I mean, you've got to keep an eye on the passports of your child. You have to put the other embassy, if you're married to a foreigner, you have to put the other embassy on notice. Because no matter what court papers you have demanding that they can't take the child out of the country, if the husband is from the Middle East, or Guatemala or Japan or whatever, they can go to their embassy and say, I lost my son's or daughter's passport, and they can get another passport for that child.
Wow.
And they can travel. You'll never know about it. So you have to you have to put their embassy on notice legally, put them on notice that the child is not allowed to travel. They're not allowed to give out a passport. You have to put the airports on notice. You have to put immigration on notice. There's a lot of stuff you have to do, and still they will get away with the child. All you got to do is drive across Mexico.
Oh,
that's crazy.
Some airlines, some airlines can't get on the airplane unless you have both parents' permission.
Will you be in the TV show?
I'll play a character role and pop in and out of it. I was an actor for years in the 80s. I co-starred in Hawaii Five-0, Hill Street Blues, L.A. Law, all kinds of stuff. The only difference, I specialized in undercover work when I got into private detective work. And the only difference, I went undercover with Chrysler Motor Corporation, and I went undercover with the Hells Angels, all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
The only difference between acting and undercover, what I do, is in my business, there's no take two. You screw up, you die.
Yeah, right. Were you involved in any of the high-profile kidnapping cases, like Elizabeth Smart? That's the only one I can think of offhand.
Yeah, I was actually flying up on the Elizabeth Smart case, and for some reason, they pulled me. They had, asked me to come up, gotten a ticket and everything else, and then something changed. Somebody in the family, which happens, it often happens. Somebody will say, no, look, don't fly this guy in. I've got a friend of a friend, and he's a private detective, and he'll take care of it. But they don't know. I mean, I'm not putting other private detectives down. There are specialties that we all know we have, and there's different ones, and a lot of us have several specialties.
Right.
But most intelligent private detectives, if they get a child stealing case and they only handle workman's compensation and injured, insurance claims and husbands and wives cheating on each other, they should not be doing they should not be doing a child kidnapping case. It's not their specialty. We get hired by other detectives every day.
Oh, wow.
Is there more babies that are abducted than teenage girls that are 16 or 17?
Are you talking about for human trafficking?
Yes.
Or are you talking about for human trafficking, there's 100,000 women, girls, who are subjected to human trafficking every year in the United States. 100,000. And the average age of entrance into it is 13 years old.
Oh.
They go after runaways. My partner is Alan Cardoza. He owns a company called West Shield Adolescent Services here in Huntington Beach, and they're one of the biggest in the country for runaways. And there are, first of all, 800,000 to 1 million kids under 18 disappear every year in the United States. 1 million. Now, of that, 97% of those are found, come home, whatever. It gets resolved, 97%. But if you take 3% of 1 million, you're still talking about a hell of a lot of children.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Okay, that don't come back.
Wow.
That don't get found. Because runaways are hit within 24 to 48 hours. They are hit up to sell drugs, sell their body, to go with these guys, and they take them into human trafficking because no one's looking for them. On the overall, no one's really looking for them. My partner sends out people. We have agents that look like they're 16 years old, and they're actually 21, 22.
Wow.
And we send them into the streets, and they're wired, and they pretend to be runaways.
Oh.
And they'll get close to our runaway, find the girl or the guy that we're looking for.
Oh, wow.
And,
wow.
Yeah. And there's usually an adult that's around them, especially the girls. Some adult on the street will grab them, and we'll get them away from the adult. We have guys in vans listening to everything, watching over them, and we'll suggest, hey, come on, I know where there's some drugs. Let's go to a party up in the Hollywood Hills. And then once they get in the car, we've got them. Even if they bring that older adult with them,
wow,
then we have him locked in the van.
Let me ask you something, Logan. And this might be sensitive, and again, I don't want to cross any lines here on you. But how do you get paid? And that's kind of part one. If you have a poor child who gets kidnapped, is he or she going to have just as much a chance of getting help from somebody like you as a rich child? And the other one is, let's say there's a kidnapping here in our community, God forbid, and all of the convenience stores decide to put these little, plastic bins on the counter so that everybody can put $1 or $2 in there, and we raise enough money to hire somebody like you. I guess that's all I want to say with that. How do you get paid if there's no money in a family, they're just desperate to find their child?
Well, it varies. We do a certain amount of pro bono cases. I just rescued 2 kidnapped boys. They were kidnapped from Texas. They were taken deep into Mexico, and I just got them back. I worked 11 months on it pro bono. There are certain cases. The father had fought for our country in 3 wars.
Wow.
Twice in Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Balkans, and he came back. His kids get kidnapped by his wife, and our country does absolutely nothing for him. And so I took it on and got it, and I got the news involved, and it took me 6 months to get the authorities in Texas involved, and then finally I got a new DA was brought into town. So anyway, sometimes but they will do fundraisers. They'll take a loan out on their house. Everybody from the Elks Club to Girl Scout cookies, they've done a little bit of everything. And obviously we look at the situation of each parent, and there's a lot of organizations that help them. They don't necessarily go out and do what we do, but they help them try to locate, the kids. There's a lot involved in it. I mean, finding them is one thing. That's half the battle.
That's it. That's more than half. Let me just reintroduce you. Logan Clarke is our guest. He's holding us spellbound with his stories. He is a specialist in finding abducted children and returning them to the homes, and he is so good at what he does and has so many stories to share with us that Sony Pictures Television has recently created a TV series on Mr. Clarke's life. And Pierce Brosnan is one of the people involved in it. Just to drop a name, he's not only executive producer, but also will be in the show. Sean Ryan is the executive producer. You've seen him with The Unit, The Last Resort, Chicago Code, and The Shield. And Frank Military, it says here, is one of the writers, and Mr. Clarke himself is also now and then in the show. When will we start to see the show on TV?
We really hope to get it up this year. As I say, it takes a long time in development, but we're making a big push right now. I'll know a lot more by January 15th. What's going on? Pierre's flying back in January, and if anybody's looking for me, Clarke has an E on the end of it. By the way, that people find me on the internet, or they'll find me through a law firm. I have a website, loganclarke.com.
Okay.
And it just depends on what the case is and how we evaluate it. I'll use the first part of the funds to investigate my clients. I have to make sure I check with the law. I check with the if there's been any reports of physical abuse between the husband and wife. I got to make sure my client's not lying to me. I've had clients hire me.
I bet.
And
yeah.
they've been the ones. Yeah, they've committed crime. I had a guy hire me to find out who killed his mother, and he had done it.
Oh,
He's the one that killed her, and he figured that since he was paying me, that he would own me. You know, that if I got close to figuring out it was him, then he could go back and clean up his trail, and because I was for hire.
Oh my goodness!
It didn't work out that way for him. You know, I found out it was him, and then I turned him into the homicide.
when you have the abductors that get these teenagers for drugs and prostitution, are you able to prosecute the abductors too? Then does another team come in to arrest the people that do the abducting?
Yeah, that's secondary. It's not our prime target at all. We're more worried about just getting the kids and getting them either back home, or like my partner has contracts with 120 different hospitals and schools and lockdown centers and boys' homes and everything. We try to keep an eye on who the guys are. We try to keep a reservoir of who these different ones are, especially in the Hollywood, Los Angeles areas, New York areas. And we put their names into a computer so that we can, try to take them out later and try to deal with them later, but get the child home, get the child back to his parents, get him back to the lockdown center wherever he came from, that he ran away from. And then the second team is hopefully we'll try to get the guys arrested. But it's really our last concern. We just want to get the kids away and get them taken care of and make sure they don't recontact. That's the danger, too. A lot of times we'll save the kids, get them home, and then they'll be recontacted by the adult in the street that was, that was marketing them.
Logan, will the TV series only focus on the success stories, or will there be some that we are sad at the end?
No, as a matter of fact, the series says, this series is based on the real-life adventures and misadventures of Logan Clarke.
Oh, my goodness.
So it shows the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Some that where the child maybe was murdered or never found or something?
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, that's
worst. I want to slip in a question. I know we have a listener who wants to ask you a question also, but real quickly, have you ever run into a nest? Like, let's say you're looking for one child, and then you find like 6 or 7 children that have other stories that weren't even connected with the one you were looking for?
Yes. Yeah, it's happened several times. And then you really have a mess on your hands. So then you've got to figure out a way. You have to look at the situation. You're paying me $10, $20, $30, $40, $50,000 to get your child. Does my client want me now spending time, and money to get the other 4 kids or 5 kids there? Do I bring in, a lot of times what I'll do is I'll assign one of the team guys, and I'll say, okay, look, let's get, it's very complicated because when you get one, you probably are going to have to get them all. You're going to get one shot at it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
break in. Yeah, you're not going to break in, grab one, and then turn around and come back the next day. And
Right.
more.
Oh my goodness. All right, let's go.
So you just got you. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Logan, and let's just go to the phone real quickly, only because we're up against the clock.
Sure.
Good morning. You're on there with Logan Clarke.
Good morning. I have a couple of questions. I'll ask them and then hang up and let you go ahead and answer. I wonder, especially with parental kidnapping, do you wind up sometimes with a child who does not want to go back to the other parent and maybe even get back there and run away again? And the second question is, what is the longest time that a child has been away before you found them? I mean, like years or months or something. And I'll hang up and let you go with it.
All right.
Okay, I'll answer the second question first because it's the quickest. The longest has been 4.5 years, 5 years, and since they had been seen by the parent.
Wow.
And we get them, and then it's very difficult. That's where you're going to have. Now, back to the first question, where the child, doesn't want to go back. You've got to stop and figure out, okay, why doesn't that child want to go back? If we've done our investigation properly and there is no molestation, there is, no abuse or anything like that, has the child been poisoned against the other parent, alienated? And that's a federal crime. Parental alienation is literally a federal crime, punishable by years in jail. So you can't blame the child just because the child's been poisoned, and they always are. Almost every single time they're poisoned against the other parent. And they're made to change, they're told horrible stories. I had a child who was told that their mother was dead, and this is back, before the internet, but that the mother was dead, et cetera, et cetera. They even went to a grave. Oh. And unbelievable. This guy did this. He lived in a small town area. But anyway, they visited their mother at the grave, and I showed up a year and a half later with Mom.
Oh, wow.
You want to talk about some issues this kid's going to have for the rest of their life. But if they don't want to go, I've taken kids that don't want to go, but I know they're just reacting. They're 7 years old. They've been kidnapped for 2 years. They're told horror stories about their other parent. And unfortunately, women often, not sometimes, very, very often, the last thing, their Hail Mary pass, they will tell the authorities and radio stations and everybody that the father molested the child. Oh. And they believe that, and it does. It gets churches. There's an underground operation we call the Underground Railroad. It's just like it was during the slave days. And they transport these mothers with their kids all over the country and protect them because the mother claims molestation by the father. And it's 90% of the time it's a lie. 90%.
Wow.
So and now imagine the issues. Imagine the mental issues this child is going through. He's told to lie. We just got the ones back from Texas. CPS came in, and after a half a day of questioning, the kid broke down and said, "My dad's never done anything to me. My mom made me say all these things."
My goodness.
Can you imagine how screwed up these kids are?
Yeah.
And the parent says, "I'm doing it out of love." I love my child. Bullshit. You don't.
This isn't Rick D's show, by the way.
We can tell you're passionate.
It's okay.
I get very when I catch the guys I'm after, they don't like getting caught by me.
Yeah. Mm-mm. Well, Logan, thank you for being on our show. Gosh. Thank you for what you're doing. That's the bigger thank you. The fact that you came on our show is awesome, but I mean, what you're doing is even more awesome. The fact that we're going to be able to take a sneak peek at what your life is like with this TV show, I can't wait to see it. I don't want to see the sad ones, though. I'll be honest. And I'm just wondering, how do you ever trust anybody? Your faith in humanity must be compromised because you see so many people who are at their worst. I've often thought this about anybody in law enforcement, by the way, but anyway.
Yeah, you get very hardened. You really do. It's tough. You have to look at the world kind of through different colored glasses.
Yeah. Well, there are good guys and there are bad guys, and there are lots of bad guys. That's the way I look at it. We like to say 90% of the people are good, but maybe it's not that big. Maybe it's a smaller number. Logan, thank you for being on with us today. Your website is your name, correct?
LoganClarke.com, and Clarke has an E on the end of it. You can just put my name in Google. Just put Logan Clarke with an E on the end of it in Google, and it pops up all over the place.
And is there a working title for the name of the show, the TV show?
Yeah, it's called, last I heard, it was called The Operative. And I never know what they're going to change it to, but
Operative.
So far they've called it The Operative.
Okay.
And then another name is Global Pursuit.
I think I like that one better.
I like that one better too.
Do you, Robin?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Global Pursuit.
If I were to,
I actually have a detective agency named Global Pursuit too.
okay.
It fits.
If our 2 cents, it does fit, and it just rang better with me. Logan, thank you again for being on the air, and thank you for saving so many children in the course of your career. That's awesome.
Thank you too.
Yeah.
All right.
Wow.
Anytime.
Go to his website, LoganClarke.com. Robin already has it, I believe, on our website. If you go to our guest list, you'll see Logan's name, the Logan Clarke website, and Clarke with an E at the end.
Yep.
Thank you, Logan.
Okay, thank you, guys.
All right, we'll take a little break and be right back.
We're listening to WOCA News Talk 1370, Ocala's source for what's happening in today's hottest, up-to-date news and topics.
Legally Yours, brought to you by Fuller & Fuller Attorneys at Law. On the air every Wednesday morning at 10:30 a.m. with John Fuller, a board-certified civil trial lawyer for over 25 years. John welcomes your questions, from business to complex family matters to legal disputes. So tune in every Wednesday morning at 10:30 a.m. for Legally Yours with John Fuller, right here on WOCA 1370 AM and 96.3 FM, The Source.
Gene Powell pasture mowing. Our tractor services include bush hog, disking, front end loader, box blade, and stump grinding. We also have zero-turn mowers for the smaller paddocks, aisleways, fence rows, and lawn care. Fence row spraying is also available for weed control. We are licensed and insured. Gene Powell pasture mowing, 352-629-2440, or online at powellgene, Gene, at Yahoo.